Hello and welcome to this week's Medicinal Monday on the Alter Your Health podcast. I'm Dr. Susanna.
And it's Dr. Ben here.
And we're both naturopathic doctors who support individuals in reversing disease and reclaiming optimal health through whole food, plant-based nutrition and mind-body medicine.
We've got a very important and empowering topic today on the podcast in our series from around Alter Your Health from head to toe. We've covered a lot of things and we're kind of making our way through our body. Today, we're talking about the circulatory system, optimizing the health of your blood vessels, which obviously feed every cell in your body. We didn't really know where to weave this into the conversation. We talked about skin and bones, and the blood vessels are maybe
in your skin and
maybe the
bones.
Maybe the most important thing. Maybe the most important thing, obviously, like I said already, feeding every cell in of your body. Before we dive in, we've got an important announcement.
Yes, we have the Alter Health Summer Cleanse starting up on July 17th. Registration closes July 15th.
Which is this Friday.
Yes, so come on in, and actually, you're going to learn in this podcast episode why detoxification is also so important for our circulatory system and all the organs that our circulatory system feeds.
Totally.
More on that at the end of the podcast.
For sure. And of course, the cleanse, the first meeting is this Friday. That's why registration kind of closes before our meeting Friday afternoon. But the cleanse itself starts next Sunday. So come on in. You'll get all the resources and support that you need to really take your health to the next level.
Yes.
So onward into talking about the blood vessels and the circulatory system. And it's hard to separate this conversation from the heart and these quote unquote cardiovascular system. Usually they go hand in hand, but we're doing our best to actually save the heart and the health of the heart for another conversation. So we're really talking about just the blood vessels, but it goes without saying that one of our most blood vessel rich and energy dependent and oxygen dependent organs in the body. Talked about one yesterday, which is the brain, or not yesterday, last week, which is the brain, and how important the microvascular system is feeding and energizing the brain. But of course, the heart is fed with blood vessels as well as every, like I said, every cell in the body.
Definitely. Yeah. And so to start off today's conversation, I think we should start with this amazing statistic that if all the blood vessels in your body were connected end to end, they would span 60,000 miles.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think that obviously some people might have more blood vessels if they've got a bigger body. Obviously, like you can think, blood vessels form like to feed a growing body. And I know like Dr. Susanna is growing more blood vessels and increasing blood volume to feed a growing body inside of her body during pregnancy. But yeah, on average, 60,000 miles of blood vessels, which it's hard to fathom how far that is, how long that is, wrapping around the globe 2.5 times or so.
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, but to just kind of put into context how important the circulatory system is, the circulatory system is what delivers nutrients and oxygen to all the cells in the body. If those cells are starved of blood circulation and all of those nutrients, the cells die.
Right.
Yes, that's why, in a heart attack, when there's a blockage of an artery and the heart muscle isn't fed that fresh blood, part of the heart muscle becomes ischemic and actually isn't able to function.
And that's, of course, kind of the more extreme end stage acute manifestation of that suboptimal diminished, damaged, blocked circulation. But we can also just imagine the detriments from kind of the chronic, sluggish, suboptimal circulation. And in addition to failing to deliver oxygen and nutrients to cells and vital organs, another important function of the vascular system is removing waste products that are accumulating as a just natural result of metabolism in vital organs. And that leads to acidity and oxidative stress and all other things at that kind of end, at that end of the vascular system. So we need to consider both delivering the goods and taking out all the waste. And that's what the circulatory system is doing for us. And we don't need to think about it. We don't need to make sure that the blood vessels are open and that way and go in that direction. But, when we do optimize our nourishment, when we focus on, as we're going to be talking more about, optimizing endothelial function and the health of that inner lining of the blood vessels, we can ensure that all of the oxygen and nutrients are being delivered. And likewise, all of those waste products are being removed from our body.
Yes. Yeah, so let's just talk a little bit about the anatomy of blood vessels, because that really helps. Also, it helps us understand the importance of good circulation, especially when we get to the teenier little blood vessels in our body, right?
Totally. And we don't do this often on the podcast because, quite frankly, my understanding is that most people just listen to the audio, but we're going to be sharing some images. Here's an image of the artery and a vein. And for those of you who don't know, we also do have a YouTube channel, so you can watch these podcast episodes as well as listening to them. But here you see the artery and the vein. And I think this is a pretty cool image. Obviously, it's just kind of a drawing, but it shows the relationship between arteries and arterioles, and then this capillary bed, which is where the delivery of nutrients and oxygen really takes place, as well as the uptake of waste products and whatnot, leading to a venule, and then, of course, our larger veins, which can have valves in them to ensure that the blood flow is going in the right direction. And then the veins, of course, lead to the lungs to be reoxygenated, so that we can deliver more oxygen and nutrients again.
Yes.
And I think of another kind of tangent to this conversation, which is often left out, but I just want to plug it for a second. Another thing happening at this capillary bed is the start of the lymphatic circulation. There's a bunch of interstitial fluid, it's called, that's kind of leaked out through these capillaries. And then our little lymphatic capillaries called lacteals kind of suck up and absorb a lot of the waste and a lot of the sludge and a lot of the stuff to transport those waste products through the lymphatic system, which is, of course, interconnected in that way with the rest of the circulatory system.
Yeah, I was actually thinking next week would be a good time to talk about the lymphatic system.
Cool.
Yes.
So do you want to talk about what's going on with the lining of the blood vessels?
You talk about the lining of the blood vessels.
Oh, okay. So it's another thing to point out in this graphic is the lining of these blood vessels, and you've got kind of what is it called? The connective tissue in the outermost lining. And then we've got this kind of muscular lining, especially in the artery, which constricts and relaxes, a little bit less so in the vein. And then the innermost lining is called the endothelium, which we certainly talk about a lot because this is the most vulnerable part of the blood vessel. It's where we talk about kind of vascular injury or damage or endothelial dysfunction. It's just one cell thick lining, the inner lining of our blood vessel. Some people kind of talk about it as like saran wrap, which is, it's kind of delicate. And you can think about when we eat kind of toxic foods or, things that have oxidative stress to them, or when we have, such as fried foods and oils, or we're exposed to other toxins, pollution, etc. Those kind of irritants can damage the single cell layer thick endothelium and cause the progression of what's caused endothelial dysfunction, which leads to another graphic here, which is showing kind of that progress. The first step is the formation of a fatty streak, a disrupted endothelium and a fatty streak. And oh my gosh, I remember learning in medical school how the average, I think by age 10, it is observed that pretty much every 10-year-old has the development of fatty streaks. And I learned that and I thought, like, wow, like our society is really unhealthy. And it turns out that statistic and that study is from 1983, which is before I was even born. So you could imagine that maybe not every 10-year-old in today's world, more like every 4-year-old or 3-year-old or 5-year-old
I heard that even fetuses have been shown to
There
have
you go.
fatty streaking.
That I now that you say that, I'm remembering that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, we that's the first step, and then we can see the progression of endothelial dysfunction as we kind of live a chronically oxidative, stressing lifestyle. Of course, eating high fat, saturated fat, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, all of these things kind of exacerbate this endothelial dysfunction, which generally is talked about when we're talking about the big blood vessels in the body, the aorta and the carotid arteries feeding the brain, and the big arteries feeding the heart, the coronary arteries. But this level of endothelial dysfunction and atherosclerosis, I guess is the general term, is
Plaquing.
and plaquing of the arteries.
Yes,
Thank you.
that's the term that most people recognize.
This process, you could imagine, and certainly it's happening, it starts really in the microvascular system, the more vulnerable blood vessels. And of course, that microvascular system is feeding every part of our body. That capillary bed is the site of oxygen and nutrient delivery. But also, we can think about the organs that really rely on the microvascular system, which we talked about last week: the brain, the eyes are big ones. We've got our microvasculature in our eyes that we can observe in the retina when you have an ophthalmic exam by your eye doctor. Of course, the microvascular system in the kidneys. And another place is really the genitals, or that shows up. And of course, it's pretty well known that erectile dysfunction is a sign of endothelial dysfunction, because we have a diminished supply of oxygen and nutrients and blood to that part of the body, which can be reversed. Of course, it's reversed with, I'm going on a tangent.
You're really going on a lot of tangents.
It's reversed with Viagra, which is a nitrate. But we can also, and that nitrate we'll talk more about when we get into reversing this whole process, that pharmaceutical nitrate dilates the blood vessels and opens up arteries. But we can also get nitrates and other antioxidants from our foods.
Yes. Let me give you a break from talking.
Thanks.
Then.
Yeah.
So also, I just want to add to that list other organs that can greatly be affected by circulation. Of course, anything that is very distal on our body or in the periphery. So hair, nails, skin can greatly be affected. Wound healing. I think we mentioned last week that the real complications of unmanaged diabetes is essentially the symptoms of really poor circulation, because also high blood sugar levels can be extremely damaging to the most fragile microvasculature. And so those symptoms of severe diabetes do include like skin ulcers and kidney failure and blindness, and some of these
classic things.
All those classic things.
Yeah.
But so to just kind of recap some of the major points that you just mentioned, Ben. Of course, talking about that disease progression of plaquing of the artery, that is a main key factor to focus on. And as you said, it affects the smallest vasculature first. And to talk about just that progress again, what creates plaque, it all starts with injury. It all starts with an injury to that saran wrap layer, the endothelial in your vasculature.
Yeah, a lot of people, of course, and we're going to talk more about this when we talk about the heart, but people focus on the cholesterol because it's a cholesterol plaque. But the cholesterol plaque is actually the body's answer to the endothelial injury.
Yes.
And
what things cause that endothelial injury? Well, free radicals, oxidative damage is a big one. That's pretty much,
it all boils down to that. It
Yes.
all boils down to oxidative stress. Yeah.
But also high blood pressure, is kind of a more mechanical injury because there's more pressure in the system. So that's going to cause, more kind of turbulent blood flow, which can cause more injury to that endothelial lining. And then, the higher viscosity in the blood, the thicker the blood is, there's also going to be more turbulence causing that mechanical injury.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that one up.
Yeah. So that's why high blood pressure and thick, fatty blood are big risk factors for the progression of atherosclerosis.
Which, generally speaking, are in the context of an oxidative stressing lifestyle.
Yes.
Like, fatty foods, processed foods, junk foods, and other toxicity that's accumulating in the body.
Yes.
Because toxicity causes damage and oxidative stress in our body. So diminishing the toxic load is definitely a priority when we're talking about vascular health.
For sure.
So I think we talked about the problem enough. I think we understand the problem. We understand the mechanics, the anatomy and physiology of vascular health and disease, what causes endothelial dysfunction. So let's talk about what reverses endothelial dysfunction. And this is really the exciting stuff, because we can, in fact, reverse cardiovascular disease. We can reverse the endothelial dysfunction that happens. And I should say, this endothelial dysfunction kind of diagram, of course, we can see at the far right in the timeline, like the big plaques that are obstructing blood flow, and then they can rupture, causing a heart attack or stroke. But this process can entirely reverse. So obviously you can't reverse the plaque once it's ruptured, and some plaques are more stable, they're called, and really hard to reverse, but really not an issue. But we can reverse a plaque very much so, up to a certain degree. So how do we do that?
There's only one way to do that. That's been discovered through science so far.
And that is whole food, plant-based lifestyle. A diet that's naturally nutrient dense, a diet that's naturally low in fat, especially saturated fat from animal products and oils.
But you sound so nonchalant about it, Ben, and I just need to highlight the amazingness of that. I know amazingness isn't a word, but seriously, the only thing,
I think it's a word. Amazingness.
Okay, amazingness. The only thing that can reverse atherosclerotic plaque in the arteries, which is the main risk factor leading to heart attack and stroke and all these other, health conditions.
Not health conditions, causes of death.
Causes of death.
The primary causes of death in our world.
Is eating a whole food plant-based diet. There's no medication that can do that right now. There's no other diet that can do that.
You're developing one?
No, I'm not. But and there's all this talk about how Mediterranean diet is so good for the cardiovascular system. Well, that's been shown. That way of eating has been shown to stop the progression of plaquing, but has not been shown to reverse the plaquing like eating whole food plant-based has.
So pretty cool. Pretty cool. No big deal. No big deal. We can just reverse death. Not obviously we can't bring back the dead, but anyways, how you eat and live really does matter.
Yes.
So, but it's more than that. It's more than that. Of course, you kind of gave away the first and most important thing, is what we talked about already, focusing on nutrient dense whole plant foods that are naturally low in fat, naturally rich in antioxidants. That's the colors that we're eating. Naturally rich in nitrates, again, that we can eat, especially in our green leafy vegetables that we're chewing, as well as beets are very rich in nitrates, and that opens up blood vessels, ensures healthy, dynamic ability to relax so that we can optimize blood flow to all of our organs and cells.
Yeah, but just to recap exactly how whole food plant-based eating does prevent and reverse atherosclerosis, is because it lowers blood pressure, it lowers circulating cholesterol levels, it lowers toxicity load in the body because it's also supporting your liver and your detox pathways.
Of course.
It helps manage blood sugar levels. And, it's such a high nutrient dense way of eating, full of antioxidants, like you were saying. All of these things are like the keys to good circulatory health.
Thanks. That's a good point, bringing in the blood sugar conversation, the toxicity conversation. So whole food plant-based eating at the center of it all. But can't forget about hydration, because you mentioned how blood viscosity increases risk of kind of that mechanical injury and sluggish circulation. And you can just imagine like sucking something through a straw, like sucking a smoothie through a straw, like that's kind of hard, but sucking, water through a straw, nice and easy, right? So nice and fluid, liquid blood.
It's
That's
friction.
that's always good, which hydration is key for that. And then toxicity in general. And of course, when a lot of people are like, okay, how can I detox? How can I detox? Well, the first thing is to just stop eating, drinking, and breathing toxicity, right? So eating toxicity, eating low on the food chain is super important. And that happens to be also nutrient dense, but also being mindful of contaminants in water supplies, having a good water filtration system, air filtration, and toxicity in terms of body care products and household cleaning products, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Big topic.
Yes, but it's also really important to support your biggest detox organ, the liver. And there actually is a major liver circulatory connection, because our liver is one of the organs that filters our blood and clears out the toxicity in the blood. So if we have a sluggish liver, it can actually lead to more of that viscous blood, because the liver is responsible for metabolizing cholesterol, and there may be higher levels of cholesterol in the blood with a sluggish liver, but there might also be higher levels of circulating toxins in the blood with a sluggish liver. And so that's why you actually see people improving their circulatory health when they focus on liver health. For example, even, the more kind of obvious circulatory issues like Raynaud's, people can actually experience improvement in their finger and toe circulation.
Well, that's because
on liver health.
I mean, you're saying that, and honestly, I kind of don't like. I mean, I know you got to be reductionistic to a point, but I kind of like don't even like saying focus on liver health, because when you're focusing on liver health, you're also focusing on vascular health. Just focus on nourishment.
It's
right?
all interconnected.
Yeah.
And the circulatory system is literally one of the systems that interconnects everything in the body.
Clearly, we understand that now. So any other of your favorite vascular health promoting foods? For me, it's the leafy greens and the nitrate rich vegetables.
Did we talk about dark berries?
Well, we talked about colors,
Okay.
So are those your dark berries?
Yes, dark berries that are really high in the antioxidants. Very, very, very potent and powerful for helping preserve vascular health. Also,
vitamin C rich foods, all of those things, amla berry and acerola and camu, those kind of things that we love. So that's that's the food stuff, the toxin free stuff, the hydration stuff, and then movement. Movement is great for for circulatory health, because of course when we're moving, we're contracting our muscles. That's kind of pushing and drawing blood to our periphery, and kind of exercising our muscles, but also exercising the dynamic fluid balance and shifting of blood through our body, which you can just think about sitting like a blob on the couch, like everything kind of just pools, and that doesn't really lead to optimal vascular health. Stress. When we're talking about stress, like physiologic stress from toxicity, low nutrient status, starvation, etc., that kind of stuff, but also psychological stress and tension that constricts blood flow. And some of our favorite resources around this are, the work of Dr. Sarno. We bring up a lot in our practice, how, he's kind of observed the phenomenon of tension myositis, and how, our thoughts, our psychological tension creates physiologic tension and constriction of blood flow and nerve flow, causing pain, chronic pain, but also diminished blood circulation.
Right. And then, on the other hand, there's also the immediate responses from activation of the sympathetic nervous system on the vascular system.
Yeah.
Increased increased blood pressure, increased blood glucose, all those things we don't want when
and I'm bringing
we're
up
looking.
this image again of the arteries. We're really focusing on the arteries in this case, the red ones, right? With the big muscle. There's a big muscle around all the arteries, and that muscle contracts when we're under sympathetic, stressful experience, and that contraction impedes blood flow in certain areas of the body, pushing blood to different parts of the body, but also raises our blood pressure chronically. You could imagine you diminish the area and increase pressure, and so forth. So there's that. But lastly, I think lastly but not leastly is a practice that we talk about often, and that's hydrotherapy. Ending showers on cold, quite simply. And what that does is, of course, shifts fluid and blood circulation through our body. And I guess
well, not just quite simply cold shower. There's many different types of hydrotherapy treatments.
I guess that's just the one that I do every day.
Right. But the whole point of hydrotherapy is actually to direct circulation in the body. You can direct freshly oxygenated and nutrient-rich blood to parts of your body that need extra healing. Let's say you bump your elbow, you can do a compress on your elbow. If you have some stuff going with your lungs, you can do stuff that's focused on the chest. But yes, hydrotherapy is a really powerful tool that can help kind of modulate where circulation's going in your body.
Totally. And generally speaking, just a cold plunge, cold shower, when we're exposed to hot and heat, one thing that's interesting is our body knows how to stay cool, and that's shunting blood to our skin, like you were kind of saying. So after a hot shower, all of our blood is on our skin, and that's why we're red, right? But and you could imagine if the blood's on our skin, then our vital organs are left kind of deprived and kind of like starving for blood to a certain degree. But when we blast ourselves with cold or jump in a cold pond or bathtub or whatever it is, all of that blood at our periphery goes back to the vital organs and kind of gives a nice boost to our liver function, digestive functions, and just general circulatory health and that kind of pumping mechanism.
Yes. Whew, a lot.
Yeah.
But I hope the key take-home message is that, circulatory health is so important because every single cell in your body relies on it, right?
Yeah. It's true.
Yes.
All 60,000 miles of your blood vessels, very important.
Yes.
And if you're interested in experiencing improved circulation, improved liver health, improved metabolic health, digestive function, I guess improved just life in general, you can consider jumping into the summer cleanse, which starts at the end of this week. You can find out more at www.alter.health/cleanse. And we hope to see you in there. And we also hope to see you next time on the podcast.
Bye for now.